My name is Tim Iglesias. Right now I teach law at USF Law School, but before that I worked for 6 years with the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California, working full-time with nonprofit affordable housing developers to get local government approval for affordable housing, and particularly affordable housing for people who are harder to serve. So what I'm going to be talking about is the issue or the problem of local opposition to affordable housing. Sometimes it goes under the name of NIMBY, not in my backyard, but I try to avoid that language, both because it's not really particularly explanatory, and also because it needlessly pisses off opponents who we don't want to piss them off. We want to basically neutralize them, is what we want to do. So my main contribution really to this is I'm going to give a handout. So what this handout is called 6 Steps to Getting Government Approvals. And here's the idea, I think you've already gotten already. So to get an affordable housing development built, you need really 4 things. You need a project, an idea, a design, who you're going to serve. You need land, you need money, right? And then you need government approvals, okay? The project managers who do the affordable housing development are overwhelmed with the first 3 pieces usually. And they're reluctant and sometimes, to be honest, in denial about the 4th part because of the local opposition. It's not pleasant, it's not fun, it's not interesting, it feels horrible. But it's really not an insurmountable problem. The origin of the document that I'm giving out, 6 Steps, was a collaboration among very, very experienced housing advocates over a period of about 5 years to pull together an approach to dealing with local opposition that has been very, very successful. Okay? There's nothing magic about it, and when I say steps, it doesn't mean, don't take that literally. It's 6 different interrelated tasks. But what I want to do essentially is just highlight some of those and make a couple of quick comments. If you want further training on that, Betty Paget, who you all know, is willing and available to help facilitate some of that training, and I could even make myself available if people want it. We often do literally full-day trainings just on this one piece because it's both so important but also critical and kind of complicated. So here's the idea. So I've got 10 quick points. One is, number one, that the way to get your approvals is to be proactive and collaborative rather than reactive and isolated. There is a tendency, I love nonprofit affordable housing developers. They're God's people as far as I'm concerned, but they're overwhelmed and this is not their favorite issue. And so sometimes they believe or want to believe it's going to be an easier problem than it is, and then all of a sudden it blows up in their face. Once you're dealing with active, organized opponents, the job is 100 times harder than if you started ahead of time to plan to get your approvals by developing allies, by working with people in the community and all that, rather than reacting. Okay, so number one, this approach is about being proactive and collaborative. Here's the thing, every local opposition situation is unique in certain ways. It's about a particular project that's going to serve a particular group of people in a particular neighborhood with a particular design. On the other hand, so in that way, oh my God, it's unique. What are we going to do? It's unique every time. On the other hand, they're all the same because the issues that the opponents bring up and the tactics that the opponents use are always the same, right? So that enables us to plan ahead because we can anticipate the kinds of issues they're going to raise, and we can anticipate the tactics they're going to use to try to stop the development, okay? So that's what enables us to do planning, right? So that's the first point, is to be proactive and collaborative. Number two, don't reinvent the wheel. There's lots of materials out there. I'm handing out that. We did a special, Betty and I and some other people did a special booklet called Best Practices, specifically about citing homeless services and housing for homeless people. So that has already been kind of taken care of. There's a whole manual that we developed about the laws that support affordable housing and citing. And then this document, Building Inclusive Communities, is sort of the long version of that one-page document I gave you. So this has lots and lots of ideas about how to handle different objections and what to anticipate and all that. Okay, so that's number 2. No, don't be in that video. Number 3 is gathering support before the blow up. Okay, it's really hard if you're a neighbor. Think of this: if you're a neighbor and there's something that's going to happen in your neighborhood. If you get out in front of it and talk to your neighbors, they're going to be open to you, thinking, okay, well, this is difficult, but maybe it's going to be okay. But if there's already a blow up and everybody's all excited and weirded out and fearful, it's really hard to build allies and to develop support in that situation. So the building support part is often what is left behind and forgotten. But it really needs to be done up front. You need to build support up front before the conflict, and then you train your supporters and educate your supporters so that they stick with you during the fight, okay? So that's one part, so that's number 3, is building support before the conflict. Number 4 is thinking strategically and politically. No tactic is magic. Every tactic has to be decided, okay, do we do it this way this time, that way this time, this way this time? What the idea is, you have to keep the goal in mind. The goal in mind for this is getting the approval. The people who give you the approval are the decision makers, not the opponents. So the idea, some people kind of go into this and think like, we have to convert all the opponents or make the opponents all into affordable housing advocates. Nah, not going to happen, right? What you want to do is act in good faith and reduce the amount of opposition, neutralize as much as you can the opponents, build supporters so that the decision makers can support your project, can politically feel like they can, stand with you and approve this development, okay? So making it a goal to either assuage or convince or make nice with the opponents, that's not really the goal. The goal is to get the approval, and dealing with the opponents is part of that, but it's not the goal. Okay? Number 5, remember, mostly if you're going to be involved with this, you're dealing with people basically who are fearful. They are fearful. There's some anger that comes out, and there's other things, but mostly it's based in fear. Okay? And for any of you who have had experience, which I'm sure we all have, you're all adults, I have some kids, so I think of them in a different way, but you've all had lots of experience dealing with fearful people. Facts do play a role in this conversation, but they don't play the most important role. It's important to have your facts right. It's important to put forth your facts. Affordable housing doesn't cause crime. Affordable housing doesn't reduce property values, blah, blah, blah. We've got the data, okay? We've got the facts. But the facts are not what helps somebody who's in fear, okay? What helps somebody who's in fear is developing a human relationship with them. We have to approach them, we have to meet them and kind of let them get to know us, let them get to see how professional we are, blah, blah, blah. So it's building relationships. That's the way we deal with fear, not loading up the statistics and the facts. That doesn't do anything in the face of somebody who is scared to death about, the other in their neighborhood, okay? The other thing about the fear thing is don't take it personally. Sometimes there's some very awful things that opponents say to affordable housing developers, to anybody who associates themselves with affordable housing. But you have to not take it personally. It's nothing to do with you. It has to do with these horrible negative images they have that have been slammed into them by the media over the last 30 years. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with those images that we need to replace with really good images of what really is happening as far as contemporary affordable housing. Okay. Number 6, and I'll go fast. The best time to educate people in the community is outside of the context of a particular project proposal. Okay? Once you've got a particular development being proposed on a particular place, a lot of walls come up, But if we can be proactive, and this is where you come in, you don't need to be working with a developer necessarily on a particular development. You can find out from developers, where are you likely to be citing things? Where should we be working to educate the opinion leaders, the decision makers about affordable housing? We want to do that before we actually have a development that's being proposed, okay? Okay, thank you. Number 7, Tours of well-designed, well-managed, affordable housing is the very best form of education. If you can get decision makers, opinion leaders in the community to come visit a well-functioning development, if it's in the same community, all the better. If it's being done by the same developer, all the better. But getting them to actual affordable housing developments that are functioning right now is the best way to dispel and replace those negative images we're dealing with. Number 8, follow-up studies and former opponents are your best witnesses to the facts, okay? When we have people who live next to an existing place and say, you know, I was scared to death, but it turned out all right, it's okay. You know, maybe they don't love it, but they can say, it's okay, it's really okay. Or helping people do follow-up studies like, okay, here's the fears that were expressed about this development in this neighborhood, this is what actually happened. It didn't happen. Fears didn't get realized. Okay. Number 9, be aware, adapt, use the new communication strategies. Now this might be challenging for us. It's challenging for me. But the reality is, since I've been doing this whole thing of Facebook and networking and social media, that is the way that opponents organize now, okay? They don't organize by putting up flyers in each other's doors. They do it all electronically. So it can be basically invisible to the developer, and then the developer shows up at the meeting, there's 500 opponents. They thought it was all fine, you know, because it was all going on invisibly. So we have to work with people who understand social media to work with that. Number 10, be honest, smart, professional, even if the opponents are not. We have to be adults, even if they're not. Let them show themselves for what they are in the public. Usually unreasonable, sometimes bigoted, oftentimes, you know, really nasty. But we have to really maintain our dignity, our sense of professionalism, and being mature. Okay? All right. Thank you all very much.